Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am starting my second TBR Spin video today. In the last installment I talked about the books I read from January through April. So today I'm gonna start with the May book. It is the 27th of April today and the live show for the May Spin is gonna start soon. So yeah, I thought I'd just show you the stack I've got left. Just to remind you, I picked these books completely randomly using a spinning wheel, so there isn't really any thought on why these are on my stack. It's just random. So first we've got The Rain Heron by Robbie Arnott, which I've read his debut Flames a couple of years ago and I really loved that, so I've been wanting to read more of his work ever since. Then we got How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith, which is a history of slavery written around different monuments and landmarks. Then we've got The Afgronden by Pilar, Quintana. This is published as Abyss in English. The author is from Colombia and it was definitely a cover buy. Then we've got Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks. This was shortlisted for the Women's Prize a few years ago and it's about the Jamaican immigrant community in England and it's set in the 80s. Then we've got East Coast West by Younghill Kang. This was first published in 1937 and it was considered one of the first Asian American immigrant stories. Prairie Dresses Art Other by Daniel Dutton seems to be one of those indefinable books that combine stories and essays and vignettes and pictures. And I think it's one of those books that I just have to read to find out what it is really about. We've got The Stone House by Yara Hawari, which is a book by a Palestinian writer talking about life under Israeli occupation. And then lastly we've got Local Fires by Joshua Jones, which is a short story collection by a queer and autistic writer from Wales. So yeah, those are the 8 books on my stack, and yeah, soon I'm gonna find out what my May read is going to be. So we just did the May spin and the prompt for May will be the most unhinged or strange book on your stack. And after some careful deliberation and some help from the chat, I decided to read The Rain Heron by Robbie Arnott. This book is set in a country that is devastated by a coup d'etat, and our main character lives in a very remote area, sort of surviving on her own, and one day an army unit comes around who has orders from the government to look for this mythical bird, which is the rain heron from the title, which is apparently a very dangerous shape-shifting bird that has the ability to change the weather. So yeah, that sounded pretty strange to me. It has a quote by Jeff Vandermeer on the cover, which I haven't read anything by, but Sarah assured me that he does write some very strange books, so having him blurb the book definitely promises some unhinged storytelling. So I have finished my May book, The Rain Heron by Robbie Arnott. I would definitely say this qualifies as being unhinged and strange. Yeah, I liked this, but I'm also not entirely sure what to make of it. It definitely starts off a lot darker and more intense than I thought this book would be. We meet this woman named Ren, and she is basically living in the wild. She lives in a cave in the mountains and she hunts and forages for food. You also learn that something has happened in the wider world, or in the country she lives in at least, that has made it quite an inhospitable place to live in. And then one day she notices a group of soldiers in the area, and it eventually turns out that they are looking for the rain heron, which is like a mythical bird that can allegedly control the weather. Now Ren knows this bird is real, but she's not about to show them where it is. So the soldiers, who are led by this sort of icy, calculating, cruel woman named Zoe, are slowly but surely forcing her to crack by messing with her traps, tampering with her water supply, etc., until she is forced to reveal where the bird is. And then we also go back in time to Zoe, the soldier's childhood, and how she became to be the person she is now. When she was a little girl, she lived by the sea with her aunt, and they were ink catchers. They would basically go out at sea and offer their own blood to the squids living there, and then the squids in return would give them their ink, which was a very valuable quality. So yeah, I think that first part of the book was really well done. It was very dark, twisted. I was really interested in the story. I thought the characters were interesting. I think there were some interesting themes being explored, like climate change and the relation between man and nature, and how we exploit nature and the consequences of that. The idea of control and the desire to dominate over nature and over other people. It talks about different ways that people handle trauma and grief. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things packed in this book. But then in the second half of the book, it just kind of lost me. I really liked Ren as a character, and I liked Zoe as a child, but I didn't care much for Zoe as an adult. I didn't really feel like much of a connection to her. I just didn't really care where the story was going. It was getting a lot more unfocused and more meandering, and I just wasn't really sure what the author was trying to say in the end. Like the reason why this country is the way it is stays very vague. There's the myth of this rain heron that is never really explained. It's like the reader is sort of constantly kept at arm's length. And I feel, considering the themes of the books, it really felt quite cold and distant, especially in the latter half. So yeah, I have mixed feelings. I thought I would really love this from what I've heard about this book before, and having loved Flames by the same author, I'm just not entirely sure about this book. So yeah, that's that. I will be back in June.
Out of the way. It doesn't look like it's gonna be a swamp. Well, okay, this might be...
Okay, that was a bit of a useless prompt. A book by an author you haven't read before, because all the books on my stack are authors I haven't read before. So what I will do is I will wait until later this evening when we are playing TBR Trail and see if any of those prompts will fit the books on my stack. If not, I'll probably just use a random number generator to see what I pick for June. Yeah, to be continued. Okay, let me tell you which book I ended up picking for June. It had to be a new to me author, which was literally all the books on my stack. So I ended up using a prompt for the TBR Trail quest game I join in every month, and that was a book that starts with the letter K, which could be either the title or the author's first or last name. So I ended up picking this book, which is East Coast West by Younghill Kang. This was first published in 1937, and it was one of the first Asian American, or at least the first Korean American novels. It's a very autobiographical novel of the main character moving to the States as a 19-year-old and becoming a teacher and a writer. I really enjoyed the first couple of chapters. It's about him arriving in New York and finding his way about, getting to know the neighborhood, finding other Asian immigrants, etc. But after that I quickly started to lose interest, and the writing started to feel really sluggish. I could not get through it. So I decided to DNF this book, because basically after every few sentences I would get distracted by anything that wasn't this book. And I know I'm not as good in reading for longer periods as I used to be, but it's better than a few sentences usually. So yeah, there is plenty of other books to read, and this one can find another reader. So we're already halfway through the stack that we started off at the beginning of the year, and yeah, I'll see you in July. Okay, for some reason I thought I was really behind on my TBR Spin video with wrapping up the books, but actually I'm doing okay. I only have the July book to talk about right now. So the prompt in July was to read a book that features either a landscape on the cover or a location in the title. I ended up going for The Stone House by Yara Hawari. She's a Palestinian writer, and in this short little book she introduces 3 characters from different generations. We have a boy named Mahmoud. He is just about to embark on a school trip from Galilee to the West Bank sometime in the 60s or 70s. And seeing him set off on this trip triggers memories for both his mother and his grandmother for when they both travelled across the country, albeit under very different circumstances and not always out of their own free will. It's a very personal story. The author in the foreword tells us that the 3 characters are basically her own father, her grandmother and her great-grandmother, and I think with telling these stories she really encapsulates what is important to her and her family and the Palestinian people. She talks about the importance of ownership of land and of being able to settle in one place and having a house to return to. She talks about the erasure of Palestinian culture by Zionist invaders and what they do to try and conserve it, and she also talks about the importance of storytelling as a way of preserving Palestinian culture and as a way of protest, in that physical landmarks, books and art, that can all be destroyed, but as long as there is people to tell a story, then there's something to keep the culture alive. And I feel like in that way this book is such a beautiful tribute to her own family, but also keeping alive memories and stories of Palestinian people in a world where some people are trying very, very hard to erase and destroy them. It's published by Hajar Press, who call themselves an independent political publisher run by and for people of color. They do really well in publishing books that are instantly recognizable as Hajar books. They are all published in this sort of navy blue color with a yellow line drawing, and I think that non-fiction is switched around, so they are yellow with the blue drawing. Another thing they also do is they put a playlist of songs in the beginning of the book. Let me see if I can find it. And I think that's in each of their books. so you can listen to some music that will fit the book. I haven't listened to this one, so I should probably do that. That's all to say that I think you should at least check out this publisher, even if you aren't interested in this particular book, because I think they do cool work. For August, I haven't read my book yet, but I can tell you what I will be reading. The prompt for this month, so August, is a book with either a person or an animal on the cover. The spin was announced when I was still on holiday. I didn't have my books at hand. In my mind, I was either gonna read Fire, Rush, or How the World is Past, because I knew that they both had persons on the cover. But since it is Women in Translation month, I did check my one book in translation, because in my mind it had plants on the cover. And let me just double check if there's maybe like a little bug or like a butterfly somewhere. And I realized there is actually a person hiding in there. So yeah, this is the book I will be reading for the August spin. Okay, so I have finished the book for the August spin. This is The Afgronden by Pilar Quintana, or the English title is Abyss. It's translated from the Spanish to the Dutch by Brigitte Korpans, and the author is from Colombia. And well, first of all, it was very different from what I thought this book was going to be. On the blurb it mentioned it was about a family living in an apartment with a lot of houseplants, and you know, there being so many houseplants that it almost is suffocating. So in my mind it was going to be a kind of a horror sci-fi story with plants, which is probably like a subgenre in itself. But it wasn't. This book is very much based in reality, and this family just actually lives in an apartment with a lot of houseplants in a very regular kind of way. So I had to like switch gears partway through this book, like we're doing something else. But once I was on the right track, I did actually really enjoy this book. It's told from the perspective of a young girl named Claudia. And she lives with her parents in this flat with a lot of houseplants. Her father runs a supermarket and he works long hours, so in this book he's kind of on the periphery, and Claudia's relationship with her mother takes center stage. Now Claudia's father is like physically away and unavailable, but her mother is physically there but still unavailable. She spends a lot of time in bed sleeping. She's not really interested in what Claudia does or what she has to say. You know, whenever Claudia tries to interact with her or, you know, asks her something, she kind of gets cut off. And from the reader's perspective, or like an adult perspective, we can probably conclude that her mother suffers from depression. She's also really into her celebrity magazines, and she's especially interested in like tragic celebrity deaths where, you know, where in her opinion these celebrities were probably escaping a suffocating existence, and it's probably something to aspire to. And you can see how this kind of takes a toll on family life and on her marriage. But you see the love that Claudia has for her mother and this kind of fascination she has with her as well. Even though this is not at all what I expected, I still enjoyed reading it. I don't think it's going to be a book that's going to stick with me. I think the premise of this book maybe is a little bit better than the full execution. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's one of those nearly there books. Like, you nearly delivered what you set out to do, but something is missing. Maybe that horror aspect that I was expecting is what would have made this book better. I don't know. But yeah, that's that. This is going to be the last book for this second TBR Spin video. Yeah, the stack of books is definitely getting smaller. We've got only 4 months, so only 4 books left. So yeah, if you are participating in the TBR Spin, how are you doing? Are you still on track? Let me know in the comments down below, or just come and say hi. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.